Welcome to the Mario Cooks Show, hosted by professional chef, author, and food personality Mario Pereca. This program is about food, cooking, entertaining, and most importantly, having fun. And now, the host of the Mario Cooks Show, Mario Pereca.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are listening to the Mario Cooks Show on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS.
Oh, wait, you forgot that we're also on Blog Talk Radio. And we're also on Fayette TV.
We are.
And we're also on Libsyn, and we are on Stitcher, and Tuned In, and Windows Media Player, and what else?
Just pull out the list. And we're also on Fayette TV.
That's right.
And we have some extra equipment in the broadcasting studio this
We're
this
trying
morning.
something is what we're doing. We'll keep our fingers crossed to see if this works or not. But.
Okay. Well, in any case, there's a whole bunch of computers in here, extra ones anyway, and an extra camera. But as I said before, you are listening to the Mario Cooks Show, and we are live on WMBS,
right,
which is 590, your local station, 590 AM. And we do have a phone number.
We do?
So before you interrupted my scripted intro, we do have a phone number where you can call us. Our number, if you're outside the local viewing area, is...
Listening area.
Listening. Well, we could say viewing, too, I guess.
That's true.
Because they can get it on the internet from
That's
FCTV.
Right. That's right.
And the phone number is 855-590-0590. Locally, 724-812-0590. And we also have the text line, which is 411-247. You want to text the word Mario Cooks. That's all one word. And to that number, and you'll be added. You'll get a recipe right away, along with a new one every month, and you'll be added to the list. So there you have it.
We should probably say why we have all the equipment in the room instead of being so
coy about it.
So coy about it is we're actually recording the program now video for TV, since we've been getting a lot of positive comments about the program on Fayette TV. We decided, let's bring a camera in, let's see what happens, and let's go from there. So we're going to see what we can do, and hopefully on Monday of this coming week, you'll be able to see us, our beautiful faces on TV.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our own version of the Dan Patrick Show, just on a much smaller scale.
That's well put, well thought out. But we don't have all the props and everything.
We'll get them.
The Dan Patrick Show has.
We'll get them.
Yeah,
it's just bringing them with us is going to be a pain, but we'll get them.
But so Bill, anything interesting happened to you this week?
My niece made it back from Lithuania.
No, that's good. She did get a listen in,
and we did get the listen. She got it right before she left on Saturday. I said after the show, I was expecting to have it, and later that afternoon, she was listening to the program in Lithuania. She came back on Sunday, and it's been a good week. Weather's been decent, not great, but it's been decent, so I can't complain.
Yeah, that's great. I actually, and I know I posted pictures that you may have seen. Last Saturday, I went to a really interesting event.
Okay.
It was Mr. Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, I did see that, yeah.
And it was fitness expo, bodybuilding thing, and it was a lot of fun. I went with my father and a friend of ours. And what was really interesting, well, they do a lot of different competitions, bodybuilding competitions, and a lot of them are local, but whoever wins Mr. Pittsburgh gets their pro card. Their IFBB, which is the International Federation of Bodybuilding.
Okay,
pro
thank
card.
you. I didn't know what that meant.
So they get to compete professionally in these big-time bodybuilding events.
Okay.
But the highlight of the evening was they had 8 of the top professional bodybuilders there.
Oh, that's cool.
The guys that are future and the reigning Mr. Olympia, and guys that there was 8 of them, and these guys were absolutely massive.
From the pictures you showed, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they. The amateurs were all really good, and it was fun to watch. And these guys train a lot, so all their hard work. But when the pros, and they just did guest posing, they didn't compete. But
right.
And they're not in pure contest shape yet. But when they came out, unbelievable, just massive, immensely huge all the way around. And what I enjoyed about it too was when we went out into they had exhibitors out in the lobby area.
Okay.
And they were giving away free samples of protein bars and shakes and things. And I tasted one protein bar that just was unbelievable. It was cinnamon cookie dough.
Oh, wow.
And it almost tasted like, if you've ever had the brown sugar and cinnamon Pop-Tarts.
Yes.
The filling on the inside of those, that's exactly what it tasted like, but it was a protein bar.
Really?
So that was interesting.
It didn't have the same calories as 2 slices of white bread like the Pop-Tart does?
I don't think so. I didn't see the actual label because they were just giving out. Well, I saw the box. I didn't check for the nutrition ingredients.
My middle son, Andy, who is thin as a rail, 8 years old. That's what he eats for breakfast every morning, are 2 brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts. He is in 3rd grade, and he's done that since he was in 1st grade, and he's still thin as a rail. And I'm looking at buying stock in Kellogg's just so I can keep buying these things. He won't buy the generic. He won't buy the off-brand. We have to have the Pop-Tarts.
And I'm glad that you just mentioned Kellogg's because going into food news in our 3rd segment, that's a great that we're going to be talking about Kellogg's. We have some Kellogg's information for everyone coming up there. But there's a lot of food news going on, actually. I have like 5 articles. We'll do as many as we can on the air here, and then we'll carry the rest of them over into the after show at justcookitradio.com, which if you missed last week's show, you should go to the website and listen to it because we made a big announcement.
Right.
Do you want to kind of reiterate that?
The program is rebranding itself as of June 1st. We are going to be known as Just Cook It Radio with Mario and Bill. And that's what it is. Now, if you went to the Mario Cooks website during the week, you were automatically redirected to the new website. So it gives you an idea of what's happening and everything else. Much cleaner, much more concise, much easier to navigate than previously. It's just evolving with the times.
Absolutely. And the whole idea of the show's not changing at all, so don't get in a tiffy or think that tiffy, hizzy, whatever it is you do when you get angry, don't do that because the show's not changing. It's evolving. We're still going to talk about the same stuff, but it's we're just going to bring some new material into the fold. So basically, if you're familiar with Bill's history, it was his program was online with Bill Alexander, and then we started doing the Mario Cook Show. So we're basically going to take the 2 and roll them into one luxurious little package for you.
And one of the new liners that was cut for us this week, it says, we're online with Bill Alexander meets Mario Cooks, Just Cook It Radio.
There you go. That's
not
perfect.
that I can say it that easily. I wrote it, and I was working with it all weekend, but...
That's perfect, and I'm glad that you mentioned all the different places where people can listen to us.
We're all over the place.
We are, and the fun thing about that is we're constantly bringing new places into the fold. Now, is it a bit excessive? Probably, but I don't want to give people. I want people to be able to find us when they look for us without hassle and make it rather easily. So you can go to all these different places, or even Google and find us real simple.
Right, for the people that aren't technologically advanced. Just listen to us at WMBS and
we're not going anywhere. We'll always be here.
Yeah, so it works out real well.
Yeah, and so we have. I want to get into some food holidays. Do we have time to do a couple before we go to?
We have
break?
time to do one before break.
Let's do today's food holiday, and then we'll get a break because last week when we did food holidays, they kind of took up the whole show.
Right.
So, and today, Bill, is Happy Eat What You Want Day.
Hey, I like that one.
So. Eat what you want, whatever it may be. It's a real simple holiday. I don't understand. I wonder who brought that to the fold, which company endorses that holiday. But today is Eat What You Want Day.
I'm surprised. What was it, last week or the week before? Gallo Wines did, whatever wine it was. It's like
Moscato.
Right. Eat what you want, drink what you want. Why not?
That's right. So today's very flexible. If you like the brown sugar Pop-Tarts, eat those like your son. That's
frosted
right.
Frosted or unfrosted?
I like the unfrosted.
I like the frosted.
I like the frosted with strawberry or cherry, but when it comes to like the brown sugar, I like the unfrosted those ones.
Because and this is odd, and this is one of those things that I don't know where the information came from, but it was given to me a while back, that if you have a snowstorm coming, one of the most popular items bought at a grocery store, at least in western Pennsylvania, are strawberry Pop-Tarts.
Wow.
Toilet paper, milk, number 1 and number 2. Strawberry frosted Pop-Tarts, number 3.
And that's interesting because before the whole Hostess and Twinkie thing, the big recipe, because as soon as Hostess closed their doors, everything you saw online was how to make your own Twinkies because they weren't available. Well, before that, the big thing was how to make your own Pop-Tarts.
Oh, really? I never saw that.
Yeah, there were recipes all over for whatever reason. Like obviously Pop-Tarts didn't go anywhere, but there were recipes all over the internet if you looked. Almost every blogger, every site was doing make your own Pop-Tarts
I did not know
at home.
that.
So, and for me, it's just one of those things where I don't eat Pop-Tarts a lot, but when I do, I'd rather just get a Pop-Tart.
Yeah, I do too.
Hey, but
guess what time it is?
It's time to pay some bills.
That's right.
And with that said, don't touch that radio dial or the browser, your internet browser, because we will be back with more food holiday
or the TV channel or whatever you're
anything else you might have
your
near
smartphone.
You. Yeah, but we will be
your dashboard on your car, whatever. Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. So we'll be right back here on the Mario Cook Show. And we're being served up to you today by the Big Barn Country Store in Delhi, by Pareca Chiropractic Center, Inc., by 4th Street Barbecue, and by 30 East Main.
And we'll be back with more of the Mario Cook Show here on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS, and on Fayette TV. Streaming online at FayetteTV.org.
Good to have you back. You are listening to the Mario Cook Show on your local station, 590 Radio, WMBS. I am Mario Pareca, and I guess today I can't say what diagonally from me.
Oh, I guess you could.
Alongside me, on the other side of the table
If they
from me,
want to see it bad
Bill
enough,
Alexander.
they can tune in on TV, and they can also watch it on YouTube and everything else, right?
There you go. All different ways you can find us. Again, and you can also call us at 855-590-0590 or at 724-812-0590. So before we went to break, we were talking about the food holidays.
Right.
And we said today is National Eat What You Want Day.
Okay.
So there's really not a lot we can say about that other than
You eat
just
what you
go
want.
eat what you want. So we'll move on. Go ahead.
I forgot to tell you. What day was it? My wife and my son were out, and they went out. It must have been last Saturday because we had soccer late in the day, and then my wife and my son went out because of my niece coming back. They were getting some stuff for the get-together that we had, and I was hungry. Nothing to eat in the house. Found some ground beef, made 2 hamburger patties, of course, smothered them with blue cheese and everything else, and had a sourdough garlic bread that we had from a couple nights before, toasted it, put the burgers on top of it, and they were the best thing I think I've eaten in a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to beat sourdough
They
garlic
were
bread.
excellent when it came to those blue cheese hamburgers.
And you are a big fan of blue cheese hamburgers.
I'm eating it out of the container now with a spoon. How bad is that?
I don't think there's anything bad about it at all personally, but that's just my opinion.
I mean,
so.
I thought of that when you were talking about that, but it's just one of those things that even I can cook, which I'm really surprised.
Everyone can cook.
Yeah,
You just got to do it. It's just one of those things that you just got to do.
Just cook it.
Just cook it.
There
That's
you go.
what I say. That's our philosophy. But anyway, tomorrow, Bill, happy Nutty Fudge Day.
I like fudge. I like nutty fudge too.
What's your favorite fudge?
My favorite is peanut butter fudge or peanut butter and chocolate fudge. Now, where do you get your peanut butter fudge from?
Well, I'm not a huge fudge fan.
Yeah.
So basically, whenever I have fudge, it's normally when we're on vacation.
Vacation at the beach.
Yeah, because they have the candy kitchen there, and that's like their whole front of their candy shop is filled with fudge.
We get it at Fudgy Wudgy.
Oh yeah,
when
in the
we're
Strip
down
District.
No, Fudgy Wudgy's in the Strip, and then the Fudgery is on vacation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you go to South Carolina.
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Outer Banks.
We go to Delaware.
Okay.
So we have the candy kitchen there, but I kind of like the maple walnut.
Oh, I like that too.
Is probably my favorite.
Now, would that be considered nutty fudge?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's
It would have nuts
there's
in
nut
it,
in it.
yeah.
It's fudge. It fits the bill. But the thing about fudge that makes me not a huge fan of not eating it, it's just so rich.
Oh yeah. Well, you don't eat a whole chunk of it. You just eat a small piece of it.
Yeah, and it's just it seems like there's just
It could be
It's
a little bit too much. Yeah, at one time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thing. But once a year when I'm on vacation, whatever, I can handle that.
I like homemade fudge too, but you don't have people making as much as they used to.
No, you don't. I mean, that's one of those things. If you're listening and you have a good fudge recipe and you make fudge all the time,
Yeah, please send it. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I've been trying to convince my wife for years to make it, and yet she won't.
Really, she's never made it.
Maybe I should. Maybe that should be it.
She's never made it. Or?
Not as long. We've been married 16 years, and I haven't had homemade fudge.
Wow. But hey, again, at least you get it on vacation, right?
I get on vacation. Yeah.
So that's tomorrow on the 13th. It's National Apple Pie Day.
That's good. From the Big Barn.
From the Big Barn.
Big
They do have
Barn.
fantastic
Oh, I
apple
know.
pie.
We were talking about that when we were waiting for my niece. We got in a big conversation. What is your favorite pie? And Dan and I looked at each other, and we both said apple pie from the Big Barn.
That's right. Okay, so apple pie from the Big Barn, and then we have also Fruit Cocktail Day.
I'm not a fan of fruit cocktail.
You don't like fruit cocktail?
Nah.
I like to make my own fruit cocktail.
I think my problem with fruit cocktails when I was a kid in the cafeteria at the school. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
The big can, the big industrial-sized can opener, and then scooping it into the container. That just wasn't my thing.
Yeah, the thing about that is, too, they put it in that syrup that's extra sweet. I mean, if you make your own, you can use natural fruit juice.
Right.
You can do your whatever kind of fruit you like. Typically, it's pears, peaches, cherries. That's what. But you can also add pineapple. You can also add apple to it. You can also add, whatever it is, oranges, whatever you like. So if you just make your own fruit cocktail, and then you can I like pineapple juice on mine. You can use apple juice if you like that. But I also like to dilute it a little bit because it's so sweet.
What do you dilute it with?
Water.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just so sweet, and it's just, you don't want that overly sweet, syrupy type taste. So that's on the 13th. So it's kind of a fruity day.
A fruity day.
It's a fruity day. Apple pie, and then you have your fruit cocktail. So happy National Fruity Day. Then you got on the 14th, we have National Buttermilk Biscuit Day.
I like buttermilk biscuits.
I like buttermilk biscuits too. Do you ever make buttermilk biscuits?
Yes.
Do you?
No, I don't. I watch my wife do it.
Well,
it's much easier.
Well, let's talk a little bit about biscuits, because biscuits are one of those things that they're so easy to make because there's not many ingredients to make them.
Right.
Something you can make easily, I should say. But they're also something that people like to take that shortcut and get those things in the tube, which, they're decent, but that's just not my thing. When you
don't like it when you slam it down on the counter and you watch it pop open?
That's kind of cool. But I prefer, if I'm going to make anything from a tube for convenience reasons, it's going to be the pizza dough. Just because.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have thought.
I mean, pizza dough's easy to make.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but when you're messing with the yeast and you got to let it proof, it just takes too much time for me. So, I mean, I've done it many times. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather use it from the tube when I'm doing pizza. But as far as biscuits go, the most important thing to making a biscuit is the flour, obviously. So the rule of thumb for biscuits and for baking breads or anything like that is the less protein in the flour, the better it is for biscuits and quick breads. The more protein in your flour, the better it is for yeast breads.
Okay.
Because gluten is a protein, and the more you work the gluten, that's what gives it that stretchy, tougher consistency that you're used to in like a sourdough bread or a bread. But when you get the biscuit that's that flaky, crumbly texture and consistency, that's from not developing the gluten as much. So just to give you a rundown on flours really quickly, because I know it doesn't really tell you much when I say protein-wise, let me just give you a little the most popular flours and their protein content. So, for instance, cake flours have the least amount of protein, which makes sense because you want them to be the most tender.
Right.
So cake flours are typically 7.5 to 8.5% protein.
Okay.
Okay. Then next on the scale, now we're going from lowest to highest, you have your bleached Southern all-purpose flours. Now, Southern flours are what they'll call winter flours.
Okay.
So they're softer. They're harvested in the wintertime. And those are typically 7.5 to 9.5% protein. Then you have your national brand they're self-rising flours. And so
you're talking like the gold medal and the
gold medal, Pillsbury, right?
Robin Hood, whatever that is.
And those are typically 9 to 10% protein.
Okay.
Then you have your national brand all-purpose flour, which is what typically everyone has, but that's 10 to 12% protein.
Okay.
And then you have your northern all-purpose flour, and northern flours are typically harvested in the springtime as opposed to the wintertime.
Okay, now my question for you is, because I would have never known this about flour because I've only seen 4, do they label if they're northern or southern or anything like that?
They do. Brands like White Lily, Martha White, Red Band, those are typically southern flours.
Yeah.
I've
seen the Martha White.
Yeah, Robin Hood, Gold Medals, those are northern flours. And the northern all-purpose is 11 to 12% protein.
Okay.
So you look at that. Then you have your unbleached all-purpose, which is like your King Arthur. That's 11.7% protein. Okay. They're very technical on that.
People that are have an issue with gluten, do they need to look? Are they not able to eat it at all, or do they have to look at what has the higher protein content?
Gluten is a protein in wheat. So
Okay.
if they have a gluten problem, then they can't have flour
Oh,
at
okay,
all. So
okay.
they have to go. They do make gluten-free alternatives. Cup for Cup is a great one that you can look up. Williams-Sonoma sells that.
Okay.
And typically, and there's a bakery, a local bakery here if you're in the area that's around the Pittsburgh area. It's called Gluteny. And everything they do is gluten-free. So, and the thing about gluten-free, if you have a very severe allergy to gluten,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm talking super severe, you can't even have gluten-free foods that have been cooked in the same oven as foods
really?
with gluten. Yeah, it's an
Oh,
allergy.
I never realized
So
that.
those are the most severe cases.
Okay.
So Gluteny is one that embraces the most severe. So they even manufacture their own mixers, their own ovens. So if you get something from Gluteny, it's 100% gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Now,
Okay.
a lot of these other places, say you go to a pizza place that offers gluten-free pizza, you
They
got to
were
be
using-
careful,
right,
because the ovens, they bake regular. But most people don't have that severe of a case. As long as there's not gluten in the actual food, they
I
can
gotcha.
handle it.
That makes sense.
But gluten, like I said, is in wheat, so it's in all flours. But what they'll do is, to make the gluten-free, they'll typically use like rice flours, cornstarch, potato flour,
Okay.
and they'll combine those in a way that it gives you the same consistency and kind of the same type of deal as regular flour without having the gluten. Now, it's going to be a little different measuring-wise. That's why I like Cup for Cup, because that's the name, and that's
Right.
what it is. You can measure it cup for cup and use it like regular flour. But to get back to the proteins, the highest concentration of protein in flour is obviously bread flour, and that's what we said. The higher the protein for breads, and that's 11.5 to 12.5% protein. So, if you're gonna make biscuits, I would recommend cake flour has really not enough to make a good biscuit, but the bleached Southern all-purpose flours, the White Lily, the red band, the ones that are 7.5 to 9.5% protein are typically your best bet.
For some reason, when I think of biscuits, I think of Southern, so that would just make sense.
Yeah, and when you think about it too, when you think about the Southern flour being, and the good way to remember it is, in the South there's warmer weather, so they can get their wheat in the wintertime.
Right.
In the North here, we have cold winters, so that's why it's typically harvested in the spring. But so just really quickly to make biscuits. Now I have another trick too. But here's a standard biscuit recipe you can use if you're at home making biscuits. You use 2 cups of the flour, a 1/4 cup of butter, plus 2 tablespoons you're going to melt for brushing them before they bake.
Of course.
And 2/3 to 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. That's really all you need. So basically, what you do is you take the flour, you put it in a bowl.
No egg, nothing.
No egg, nothing. These are
I
straightforward buttermilk biscuits.
I'll be darned. I would have not assumed.
The first thing you want to do is, when you make biscuits, you got to go really quickly. So you want your oven preheated to 500 degrees, and you want it on in plenty of time, because you don't want to have to wait for the oven once the dough's made.
Right.
So then you're going to start with your flour. And, it says that, or generally people will cut their butter into their flour. You want your butter ice cold, and they'll cut it with a pastry knife. But an easier way, and we talked about this when we talked about making pie crusts, take your butter and put it in the freezer. Pull it out of the freezer and use a cheese grater and grate it right into your flour. Then your butter and your flour. You don't want the butter to melt, okay? That's why you want it so cold, but you want it dispersed evenly throughout the dough. So then you're going to add your buttermilk to that, and you just want it to be pulling away from the bowl. Don't overmix it, because there is some protein in there, like we said, and you don't want to overwork that gluten.
Okay.
So you just till it's moving away from the bowl, then you put it on a floured surface. You knead it 3 or 4 times just so it's a homogeneous clump, and then you want to roll it out to about what do I'd say? You want them thicker, so maybe maybe an inch thick, 3/4 of an inch, and then you take a cutter and you punch it. You don't want to twist your cutter, because you don't want to stretch the dough anymore. You punch it straight down, you pull it up, and when you bake the biscuits, you want them all touching on the pan. You brush them with the melted butter. You pop them in the oven. They'll take about 8 to 10 minutes. When they're golden brown and they puff up, they're ready to go.
Now you're going to put this recipe on the
I'll put it on the website. Absolutely,
because that's easy. That's simple.
It's super simple, and that's
really
what I said.
simple.
People who buy those tubes, and the reason you want generally when you bake something like cookies, you don't want them touching.
Right.
But biscuits you do, because you want the top to brown, but you want the sides to remain soft.
That makes sense.
So
one of the best biscuits I've ever had. Unfortunately, we don't have the restaurant in the area anymore. Was Hardee's. They did a breakfast biscuit that was excellent. Now, you can get them down south in certain parts, but around here we can't get them anymore.
Yeah, they're good. And there's also another recipe on here that I found that makes really fluffy biscuits, if that's more your thing rather than the crumbly thing. And all you do is you add a half a teaspoon of baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and then half teaspoon of salt. And then instead of using you add the flours are changed. So you use 1 1/4 cup of cake flour, which is the softer flour, 3/4 a cup of all-purpose, which is a little more dense.
Right.
And other than that, that's the difference. So you can make them fluffier that way, or you can make them the more crumbly, softer.
You didn't bring any for breakfast this morning.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I was kind of rushing out the door to get here. So.
Well, we got to go to break right now. So.
Okay, we'll take one more break. We got a few more food holidays to go, and then hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 food news stories in, and then we'll go on to the after show. So don't touch that radio dial. We got plenty more to come here on the Mario Cook Show, and we are being served up to you today by the Big Barn Country Store in Delhi, by Pareca Chiropractic Center, Inc., by 4th Street Barbecue, and by 30 East Main.
And more of the Mario Cook Show here on your local station, 590 Radio WMBS, and on Fayette TV on Channel 77, Atlantic Broadband, and streaming online at fayettetv.org.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mario Cook Show on your local station, 590 Radio WMBS. And where else, Bill?
Also on Fayette TV, Channel 77, and streaming online at fayettetv.org. I just saw myself, and I've never done this. Hi.
There you go.
I waved at myself.
So here, go ahead, wave again.
Can I wave again?
There
Hi.
you go. Okay.
You go.
So basically, if you ever wonder what we look like or what's going on in the studio, you can watch it now.
Well, what's really interesting about this is that, and we didn't mention it last week, we did talk about the parade briefly, but someone came up to us on the street and made a comment that they were watching or listening to the program on Fayette TV.
Right.
And they said, but why can't we see you? And well, now we're finally seeing us because by popular demand, we're giving you what you want, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we do. We aim to please.
That's right.
So with that in mind, back to the food holidays. We got a few more. On the 15th, and this is one of my all-time favorites, so get ready. It's National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, or actually Chocolate Chip Day, but we're going to talk about cookies because they're my favorites. Yeah,
I love chocolate chip cookies.
I do too. And let's talk about.
Now, do you put walnuts in yours?
I like them in mine, but I'm more of a purist.
Oh, see,
so if I'm making them, I generally don't.
I'm sorry, I have to have the walnuts.
I like them. Don't get me wrong. Walnuts are one of my favorites, but again, when we talk about comfort foods, we always go back to what we're used to. And what I'm used to is the best cookies I ever had were my grandmother's. And she generally didn't put walnuts in hers.
We did a whole episode on comfort foods when we started the podcast in September, and we talked about that. And this was one of the things that we discussed then. Yeah. So if you want to catch up with us, you can by going to justcookitradio.com and go through the archives, and you can actually hear that program.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk just for a few brief minutes about chocolate chip cookies, because I found a recipe a while back. And
not the Toll House recipe from
Nestle's? Not the Toll House recipe, no.
Roz is going to be very upset.
I know. But if I still use Toll House chocolate chips, does that make it okay?
Yeah. Or are you doing pumpkin in this one? Because we talked about that too. The
pumpkin chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, I love them.
I do too. No, these ones aren't, but I do love those. But we can talk about those as pumpkin season approaches.
Okay,
we're only a few short months away, believe it or not. But so anyway, the chocolate chip cookie recipe, I found this online. I'll post this on the website too.
Okay.
So I've only made this a few times, but it was awesome the times that I made it. So basically, what you're trying to get is a rich and buttery cookie, but you want a soft core and a crispy edge, because it's always that lifelong debate.
Right.
Do you like crispy cookies or do you like cakey cookies? So
it depends on the mood. Honestly, I'd like the soft cakey cookies most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it depends on the mood, and that's how I feel. But this cookie, if you do it correctly, it'll have crispy edges and a soft center, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. And the interesting thing about this recipe is you actually, and anyone who has cooked with me or seen me in the kitchen, whenever I make vegetables, meats, and now we're going to transfer this into pastries, into cookies, which I thought was brilliant, I love, 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 love brown butter.
Okay.
So you just take butter and you cook it until it's golden brown. You strain it, and it just has this nutty aroma and flavor to it that's awesome. In this recipe, you brown half the butter, and then you melt the other butter into the brown butter, some whole butter, and then you dissolve your sugar and your brown sugar into the butter, and then you make your cookie with it.
Okay.
And it gives it that almost like a toffee-like flavor, undertones, and it's just really, really, really a good recipe. So, you just gotta melt. I've never seen recipes. What I'm trying to say, that a cookie recipe where you not soften the butter, because that was always the most painful thing for me when I was a child, was waiting for that darn butter to soften. Right. You put it out on the counter and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, because if you put it in the microwave, we were always taught that you have to cream the butter into the sugar, and it, you cream the soft butter into the sugar and you whip air into it, and that's what makes it soft.
Right.
But you can do it this way too.
Really?
So America's Test Kitchen is actually where I got this recipe from. And it's fantastic. I'll post it on the website. It's just 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, half teaspoon of baking soda, 14 tablespoons of butter, half cup of sugar, 3/4 cups of dark brown sugar, teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a large egg, and a large yolk, and 1.5 cups of chocolate chips. And it also says a half cup or 3/4 cup of chopped pecans or walnuts.
Ooh,
optional.
I like the pecans.
It says to use 1.5 cups of bittersweet chocolate and a 1/2 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips.
Okay.
Which I like that little contrast of chocolate chips there too. And also, when it comes to the eggs, instead of using your standard 2 or 3 eggs, you're using 1 egg and 1 yolk, which is going to give you a much richer, creamier product.
And more cholesterol.
You're eating a cookie. What do you expect? If you're eating a salad and you're talking about cholesterol, then okay, but you're eating a cookie. So that's chocolate chip cookies, and I'll post the chocolate chip cookie recipe on the site as well as the biscuit recipe. So, and these are recipes that I found through my research and my studying and travels. So we'll just put links up there, and then it'll link you straight to the site where I found these recipes and have tried them and really like them. So, moving on to the 16th. The 16th it's a very interesting holiday, Bill. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I hope I'm saying this right. It's a French term. It's Coquille Saint-Jacques Day.
Never heard of it before.
What it is, and I've made it before, but when you're talking about it, you have your own secret code where you know what it is. Right. It's a baked scallop dish in a scallop shell, and it's got like a white wine cream sauce and Parmesan cheese. Oh. And it's all baked in the scallop shell.
Oh, that sounds good.
So that's basically that's what it is. It's highly French, believe it or not.
Really?
And
I would have never guessed by the name.
It's perhaps the most famous baked scallop dish. It says here.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's butter, cream, mushrooms, Parmesan cheese, all baked with scallops in a scallop shell. And it's the emblem of St. James the Greater. The saint's association with the scallop shell is based on a legend that he once rescued a knight covered in scallops. A variation on the tale is that while his remains were being transported to Spain from Jerusalem, the horse of a knight fell into the water and emerged covered in scallop shells. As a result, medieval Christians, making the pilgrimage to the shrine of St. James in Santiago, Spain, often wore a scallop shell symbol on their clothing.
I'll be darned.
So there you have it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So that's
so a food dish that is French based in a religious tradition.
Yes, and we talked about Spain as well. So
this
is a highly worldly dish, I guess you could say. But one more on the 17th, and I won't take up all your time with this one. Happy Cherry Cobbler Day.
I like cherry cobbler.
I love cherry cobbler.
Now, a couple weeks ago, you mentioned blueberry cobbler because we were talking about blueberry pie and about pouring the milk over it for breakfast or cream, I mean. Mm-hmm. Do you do that with cherry too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Generally it's half and half because that's what my mother liked. But I'll take it a step further and use heavy cream sometimes. Really? Talk about not being that great for you. But, I love it. I like to take cobbler and cobbler was... it's actually the name cobbler comes from the word, I believe it was a French word for wood, what they called their wooden bowls.
Right.
Because they would bake the dish in a
the
wooden
bowl.
bowl, or they would serve it in a wooden bowl. But they would bake it. They would cover it with a pastry, anything. It came from the old English puddings they always used to make, and then they would put fruit or whatever, and they would cover it with pastry or a pie dough and just bake it because it made it made almost like a casserole, and it wasn't back in the days of the peasants. It wasn't real expensive. You could make a cheap dough with flour and whatever fat you have around, and you knead it together, and you put it over top of whatever else you have left over, and you bake it, and you have a cobbler. Okay. And that's what they would eat.
And for those of you listening at home trying to figure out what that tapping noise is, Mario's talking with his hands, and he's hitting the mic cable every time he does it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't even realize I was doing it. I'm Italian. That's what I do. I
for those of you on TV, you saw it, but for those of you at home, you're hearing this odd tapping. Yeah.
But yeah, I talk with my hands, so... Anyway, but that's your week in food holidays. How do you feel about those, Bill?
They're good. I like them. It's a good mix. More dessert and more treats, I guess.
There's a lot of baked goods.
Yeah.
The cobbler, the cookies, the biscuits.
Right. But not fudge.
You have
and
fudge.
Fudge is there.
Yeah.
But there's no
apple pie.
There's no, other than the scallops, there's no main dishes.
Well, I guess they throw in the eat what you want day.
Oh, yes, okay.
So you could do the eat what you want. You can make that your main dish. What do you want? What are you gonna have?
Hey,
on
I got
today?
what I wanted last night. Yes, it was prom last night.
Ah, that's right. You got your prime rib.
I got my prime rib, my green bean almondine, my smashed potatoes, and my cheesecake.
There you go.
I'm done. I'm happy for at least another year.
They only do a prime rib once a year makes a happy man, huh?
I went to prom at Nemacolin
makes a happy
last
Bill,
night.
I should say. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
How come you didn't mention at the top of the show and I asked you what's been going on?
I remember I'm losing sleep here. It's been
Anyway.
a long night.
Let's do a couple food news stories, or as many as we can fit in, and then we'll carry the rest of them over to the After Hours podcast. So the first story I found, this is kind of a funny story. It's not really a major serious story, but I thought it was funny, so I thought I'd add it in. So in Vancouver, they're very intense about their Canucks hockey team. Okay, so there was a gentleman who was watching the hockey game, the playoff game, the Canucks, and he ordered a pizza. And he ordered a pizza with extra chicken on it, and he ordered to pick it up. Yeah, that's what I said, extra chicken. Yeah,
okay.
But he did, okay? So anyway, he ordered it, and he was going to pick it up. He then called back, and there's a picture of the receipt here, and it says, customer canceled pickup. Resending his delivery. Canucks have tied game. Customer cannot leave house to pick up. So that's how serious they are.
Hey. I've been watching hockey all week. I would have done the same thing. So
yeah, so I thought that was funny because this receipt has really gone viral.
Yes.
And the fact that he called and he said, okay, I'm going to order his pizza for the game. I'm going to pick it up. But then right before he left to pick it up, they tied the game. So then he called. But then the Canucks ended up losing in overtime anyway.
So did he get his pizza?
He did get they had to deliver it. It was originally pick up. They had to deliver it. But I thought that was kind of funny.
That is funny.
So let's look at this really. How much time do we have? So
we have about 4 minutes.
Okay, let's get through this one real quick then, because this is something I think people can use. If I can get back to the beginning of this article. These are, it's about recycling, believe it or not. So these are 10 things from your refrigerator that you should never throw away. Okay. And there's some, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of these things I wouldn't have thought of, because generally you're recycling of your plastic, your paper, your glass. Right. But there's some things here that can be recycled. You may have to do some research to find out how you can get them recycled, but there's things here. For instance, the first one's cartons, like milk cartons, juice cartons. They should apparently be recycled. Have you recycle your paper milk cartons? Or?
No, I would never thought of that, because when we do recycling in Brownsville, it's just glass and paper.
It says here, once recycled, cartons are turned into everyday products like paper towels, tissue paper, and napkins.
Oh, interesting.
So, and they give this, there's a recycling guide. If you go to www.recyclecartons.com, it'll show you where your best local recycling options are.
Oh, wow.
For cartons. So recyclecartons.com. The next is yogurt and butter tubs. Like if you buy, I can't believe it's not butter, things like that.
That's one molecule away from plastic?
Yeah, it says, well, it's made from plastic number 5.
What, the butter or the margarine?
The tub. I wouldn't be surprised if the food was too, but the tub.
I told you we don't buy that anymore. We buy butter.
Yeah, that's what we use too. I mean, my whole family uses butter, and it's always organic butter, because that's the number one thing. If you're going to buy anything, you should buy organic.
And when we used to recycle those tubs, we actually used them for food storage.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way we
you
did
can
it.
Use that too. And I even know my grandmother, she'll save a yogurt container and use it as a drinking glass.
Okay.
She'll put water in it, take her pills with it. I
Okay.
mean, she won't do it when there's a company or anything, but it's so she doesn't have to wash dishes, you know? She'll wash it once,
I'm
she'll
sorry.
use it, and
And
then
then she'll
she'll
throw
wipe
it
it
away.
out and use it again, then she'll throw it away.
Okay.
So,
It's so funny because, and you're not old enough to remember this. Maybe you are. Welch's grapes jelly jam used to come in these little jars, and they were about so big that like I say, I'm using my fingers on TV now. They were juice glasses, is what they were, and they would have cartoon characters on it. You would have the Archies, you would have the Banana Splits, you would have the Flintstones, and everything else, and you would drink out of the jelly jars. So it's really not that uncommon to do that. Now, when I was in college, we didn't have wine glasses per se. We used to drink out of the jelly jars and drink wine in them.
so they were like your red Solo cups almost.
That was before Red Solo cups got big. No, that was our fancy china.
Oh, wow.
It's what
I
it
had a
was.
lot of things in college like that.
Yeah.
But another thing, moving on, because I want to get these in real quick before we
Wrap her up.
Yeah, before we wrap it up. The next thing is produce bags. You know those plastic bags you put your vegetables in at the supermarket? It says plastic bags aren't commonly collected in curbside recycling programs, but most grocery and retail stores provide drop-off bins at entrances and checkout areas for customers to recycle their used bags.
I've seen those, yeah.
So, yeah, unfortunately, mesh produce bags such as those often use patch. Yeah, you can't really use mesh for a lot of produce, so it says to try to take them in and get those recycled. The next one are condiment and salad dressing bottles.
Okay.
But those are generally glass, so
Yeah.
it says just make sure you rinse them out first. Check with your local programs about caps and lids. And some, you may have to remove those before recycling those. The next one's food scraps. It talks about, like, composting. And things like that. So,
And that's the one you're going to have to end with
okay.
because it's time to go. But real quick about the produce bags.
Uh-huh.
When we were kids, we used to use those in the winter. We used to put our socks in them, put our feet in them, put our socks in them, and put them in our boots. So whenever the boots would leak, it wouldn't get all over our feet.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never seen that, but I'll name the other ones really quickly, and then we'll leave. The next
Okay.
one was berry baskets and boxes, like the stuff strawberries comes in. Then you have your squeeze bottles, like what honey comes, what you buy your honey in. Water filters, if you have one of those pitchers, like a Brita water filter. 6-pack and beverage rings, those plastic rings that you always see the seagulls trapped in pictures. And finally, that's true.
Sorry.
You see. Finally, your plastic shakers, like that seasonings come in this plastic bottle. So those are a few things that you shouldn't throw away, that you should recycle if you can remember to, and help save the environment.
And we got to go.
So that's my public service. Yes, we are. We're going to go. We're going to move right over to justcookitradio.com with the After Hours podcast. We have a couple more food news stories to talk about, so make sure you come on over and follow us there. Again, check out our website. I just mentioned it, and make sure you give us a call. 855-590-0590, 724-812-0590. For Bill Alexander, I'm Mario Parecka. We'll see you in just a few minutes at justcookitradio.com.
You have been listening to Just Cook It Radio with Mario Parecka and Bill Alexander. For more information on this program and how to download it as a podcast, go to justcookitradio.com. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please call us at 1-855-590-0590.
This has been a $1 Million Baby production.